Good blessed morning to you all. A little bit of wind and rain, and every so often there's a big gust of wind. So it's a bit stormy, but it's a very fresh morning, and there appears to be lots and lots of birds about, lots of birds singing. So whether this is a portent of the weather to come, because sometimes birds congregate here at Bealtaine Cottage when there's a storm coming in, but there's nothing that I've heard on the news. Something's blowing over there, just behind me. Okay, now, look at these beautiful little mushrooms. A tiny, tiny garden all of its own on top of this old upside down tree trunk. Do you remember the one that my daughter called a triffid when I had it round the front several years ago? But that's not what I want to show you. I want to take you up to the stone circle. I did a little bit of tidying up round the stone circle yesterday. A little bit of trimming back of all the willow, because of course the willow is all woven in. So another little bit of work done. Very pleasant, never feels like work. Look at these little mushrooms, aren't they beautiful? So the earth is sprouting mushrooms, mushrooms in abundance. Good health for Mother Earth. And here, look at this, lots more, lots more. Look at all these beautiful fungi. And all the way along up there as well. So we'll just cross over the little swale, the little ditch. This is it. No water in it this morning. It only fills with water when there's really heavy rain. And look at this. More little fungi. It's a very lunacy morning. And all the way up along the path. Now, of course, this is not just a sign of healthy soil, but it's also a sign that there's lots and lots of good habitat around. And I attribute all the mushrooms here at Bealtaine to my famous chop and drop, because there's always little bits of wood, whether it's ripe wood or semi-ripe wood, being dropped down onto the earth and allowed just to stay there and rot down. And I got a little bit upset last year when I seen people on YouTube piling up all the cuttings and all the dead wood and then burning it. That's a bit like going to your mother's house and burning it down and saying, right, now you can just take your belongings and live out there in the middle of that field. Because that's how I see it. That's very much how I see it. Whatever we can manage to grow and to create, you know, always think in terms of other life and the habitat that they need. Now, lots of prayer flags in the stone circle. And I see a little bit of water coming on the screen. I'm just going to give that a wee bit of a wipe. There we go. Hopefully that's better. So I did a little bit of tidying up here and around the ash tree as well. Now something that I was thinking about, and in fact having a little talk with a visitor last weekend, was the word enough. And part of the problem in the 21st century among Western civilization is that we no longer know when we have enough, that we keep seeking more and more and more. And this is a huge contributing factor to the ongoing problems in our so-called civilization, that we just don't know when we have enough. And when I was up at the well last weekend, I was looking down across, or was it the weekend before? I don't know. I was looking down across the land and I seen quite a lot of farmers had succumbed to the what's the metaphor for it? Had succumbed to the 30 pieces of silver from the government and the EU and allowed the planting of Sitka spruce monoculture on their land. And I thought to myself, are these people who really need that money? Well, everybody needs money to survive, but it's knowing when you have enough. It's knowing when you have enough saved and put by for a rainy day. It's knowing when you have enough to go and do your shopping with. It's this whole concept of enough. And I'm not isolating anyone, and kind of calling anybody out, because you see, the thing is that we're all guilty of it, and it's something which is innate within us, that we almost panic. You go into a supermarket and as you're leaving, you're almost panicking. Oh, have I got enough? Did I get enough food for the week? So there's this, thing inside our heads about enough. But that's something that we really do need to think about and to work on. And to try to make peace with ourselves, because all the time that we're thinking, have we got enough? And I'm not talking food now, I'm talking about consumer goods and, the size of the car we have, do we have enough pairs of shoes, all that. The whole thing about enough is very much something which we need to spend some time contemplating on and just trying to figure out. Of course, in order to do that, we have to give ourselves some quiet time. And that's something that isn't so prevalent and so popular in the 21st century civilized world. That's civilized with a small c, by the way, because much of it isn't civilized at all. Yeah. So I've tried to take the whole concept of enough and apply it to my external life. So that's my life outside of the four walls of the cottage. So I bring that concept of enough out here onto the land. And so I'm looking around all the time thinking, have I planted enough? And this works for me as an antidote to the enough in the material world. Because this is what gives me peace. Great peace. Got my trendy wellies on this morning, over the top of my gym jams. So within the natural world, within the world outside of our four walls, there can never be enough. I'm here. So all the nonsense to do with enough is settled for me. Look at these lovely little mushrooms. They're different again, aren't they? Look. Quite different. This laurel arch has got amazing. Just grown from 2 laurel bushes, look, just one on either side of this path. And I let them grow high enough to come up over my head, and then I tied some of the branches together with string, you know, with cord, that would just rot and leave the branches then in that place. But what fascinates me now about this, there are birds nesting up in this, and why wouldn't you if you were a bird? I mean, this is fabulous cover. But the actual depth of it, if I just go here to the very end, right, so I'm standing under it now. So the depth of it has got to be, let me just see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's about 10 feet. Probably more, because it comes right out to here, look. And I'll have to give the lens another wipe. Here we go again. There, that's better. Now I'll just nip back and get my coffee, and then we'll just go around the front. Still have to do my new arch there, but I've managed to get a stick in to stop it falling over completely. Here's all my buckets of stuff to go over to the compost heap. Now, there we go, because I've already heated it up twice. Lovely. So we'll just go around the front. So this is my first day taking my laptop with me. Of course the new laptop is incredibly small and very, very light, which is fantastic. I'm loving it. So I'll be taking my laptop with me and going out to a place where there's good Wi-Fi coverage. So Kilronan Castle. If I buy a cup of tea, if I buy a pot of tea down there, I'll be able to sit in the drawing room, feeling incredibly grand for as long as I like. Or go into town to one of the cafes or one of the local hotels. See, this is very interesting here, look. Can you see this plant that's died? Well, that was the Chordata fulvida. and it was thriving there. But what's happened, that box, which is a silly size now, because you wouldn't believe that box could grow to that size, the box has shaded out the Chordata fulvida, and look what's growing here in its place, a self-seeded ash tree. So this is now very, very much regenerative. That's my favourite word, by the way, regenerative. If you can imagine your bank account regenerating money at will, now take that picture and see Mother Earth as regenerating at will. That affords me a great deal of comfort. Now we can see out of here as well, look. Because again I've done some trimming back and some pruning. I've pruned these pretty hard back, but they needed that because I like to keep this little bit of space here open. And if you look way past the trees, you can see the lovely yellow flowers there on the evening primrose. And then that's my little recycling depot over there, only ever emptied and carted off to the recycling centre once in a blue moon. The birds are having a grand old feed. The Lunacy feast. Oh, that was the last thing I wanted to talk about. Just what I'm thinking on here. Someone keeps popping up a question. It's actually quite repetitive, and I thought I'd just better sort it out, because they're obviously not looking at other videos. They're just putting this question on to whatever video it is I'm posting. So it's a bit boring. Okay, those of you who follow Bealtaine Cottage know what the answer to this is. But the question is, what do you do with all the food that you grow there? Well, I could be a silly girl this morning and say, I keep it all for myself. But I don't, and you know I don't. I take what I need and I leave the rest to the other life. No, that's not my surreptitious cloaked life in the shadows. The other life. The life all around me. The birds, the bees, the butterflies, the mammals. Nature herself. After all, she can't grow mushrooms if there's nothing falling down upon her. So I take what I need. I'm not here to grow masses of food for humankind. I don't have the time to go to a market and set up a stall and spend an entire day selling the food that I don't want. I prefer to leave it where it is and let the birds have it. So yes, I may grow probably about a ton of black currants, but I harvest what I need. I make some blackcurrant wine. I make some blackcurrant jam. I put a lot of it into the freezer. I eat quite a lot of it. Put it into smoothies, etc. I let the birds have the rest. Now, if you can't get your head around that concept, then there are plenty of other video sites on YouTube where you can go and see humankind growing row upon food, and that's admirable. Absolutely. But it's not what I do. It's not what I have ever done here. This is why it's called goddess permaculture and not monoculture agriculture or monoculture permaculture. All this is food. Look. All this is food. Food for life. Anyway, I'm sure the person who puts this comment up will continue to put the comment up. I'll just have to continue removing it, I suppose, because I don't want nonsense taking over any part of Bealtaine Cottage on social media. So, on that note, blessings to you all.